Hello and welcome to another video from the Fan Pub. You alright, Sean?
It's good to be back. Thank you, Al. And today's video is all about...
late tight ends.
Which you didn't do in our live draft, did you? We've got our live draft behind us, actually. So we've got... This is an actual expensive, proper money league. 16 teams, a real stretching league. We'll talk more about that at another time. But Al took a tight end in the second round. That shows you... But he did go for Travis Kelce, so I can't blame him. So he's still looking for him. Is there? What are you wearing that?
Saying what number I took him. I didn't take him early.
Not mega early. Quite late, actually, considering the ADP for the man.
In the 20s. He fell to ADP below the 20s, so I think that was okay.
Yeah, it was perfectly fine. Anyway, but today's video is all about why we believe in a late tight end, generally a late tight end kind of strategy. And I know I'm a great believer, if you don't get the best guys, then just wait and wait and wait. We're going to be talking about guys you can really wait on today.
Yeah, we're going to talk about, I think we've got 7 names that you can target late in your drafts and fill up elsewhere on running back value, wide receiver value, and other positions that are probably more critical to winning your league.
I think before we talk about it, I think I better give a bit of clarity on this as well, which is that very simply, if you go away, run the numbers, which is what we do every single year in the off-season, and you look at the tight ends, generally you're going to find there's a heck of a pack of tight ends who will give similar numbers between 70 fantasy points and 90. And all you need to be relevant is one of them, or 2 of them, depending on your strategy. And that's what we're trying to target. Guys that could end up a bit higher than they appear. And, and give you an edge.
Some late round value that you can do your job.
So shall I start with this chap? You want to bring him up on your little screen? For we're using Fantasy Pros for the benefit of this. And I'll give you his stats for last year. This is Austin Hooper playing with Atlanta Falcons. There's 2 reasons I put him up on the board. Primarily, I had him a lot last year, so that always makes you feel a bit more comfortable around the player. He's not exciting. But he's very, very steady as far as tight ends go. And last year's stats were as follows. So Al's going to dig those out for us. What I will say about him is this. There'll be weeks where, like most tight ends, they get you very little, 3 or 4 points. But Austin Hooper playing with those guys, 13 games inside a dome. It just seems so simple this year. Should easily get average numbers. And what was his stats for last year?
Yeah, so he had... year on year he's improved. So the first year in the league he had 271 yards. Then he had 526.
So that's quite a breakout for a tight
end. And then it's 660 last year and 4 touchdowns. And Matt Ryan's actually been talking him up in the pre-season, saying, he's still a young lad, really. He came into the league at a very young age. So
there's still room for a bit of growth. I mean,
he has been growing every year, so there's no reason
660, 66 fantasy points, 24 for that, so he's a 92-point tight end. That's very relevant. Most of the best tight ends only score about 100, 110, so you're not far off their numbers, and the best massively excel past that, but that's the very, very best. You have to pay a high premium for them.
He's not going in the top 10 tight end, so he's ADP's 112, he's tight end 11.
And I think that's great value down there.
Yeah, and he could well grow again, so get you over that.
112 for a guy like that, steady.
Okay, the second one, and this guy's been getting a lot of buzzing. Well, actually, we'll talk about the old stager. He's your favourite tight end, really, isn't he?
Shall I go with him first?
ADP 121.
Yeah, Delanie Walker. I mean, look, I've been drafting him for 5 years. That tells you everything you need to know about him. He was sneaky good value in the first year we drafted. He flew under most people's radar. He didn't do that after that. He has some injury concerns because obviously he missed most of last year. And because of that, of course, everybody's recency bias is always the thing that kicks in. Once you've missed time, people forget how good you were. And you often slip through. And I think at 121 for a tight end, you can get him in most size leagues. I think he's tight end 13, isn't he, at the moment? Or is he slightly lower than that at the moment? Delanie Walker at 121 as of today.
Yeah, he's about tight end 13.
And that's pretty
ADP
good.
ADP 121, so that tells you
that's so cheap. And he's so consistent when he plays. And in a team that struggles a lot of the time, the Tennessee Titans, the one area that he seems to have a good rapport with Mariota. So, week in, week out, he's the sort of guy who ends up getting you decent amount of yards and the odd touchdown here and there. So well worth a shot.
Let's just talk through his stats because we've got 6 years. I mean, he didn't do much last year. He played 1 game, but he still had 7 targets.
Yeah.
So that tells you that's quite a lot for a tight end.
It is. How many of those did he actually catch in that game?
He caught 4 for 52 yards.
Yeah, so it's very relevant. 5 points a week doesn't sound exciting, but in standard scoring, that'll keep you relevant.
But the other years, he had 807 yards, 800 yards, 1,000 yards, 890. So he's fairly... and then 571, and he's had touchdowns at 6, 4, 6, 7, 3. So
tells you the average is 5 touchdowns, isn't it? Really, that's probably what it's telling you, which is fine. And if he could get anywhere near 800 yards, you're laughing really. He's a tight end 5 or 6. So that's really cheap for him. So yeah, I can see why he's on our list. That's a good move. You bring up the next guy because
I mean the next guy's been getting a lot of love in camp. There's a lot of hype about him at the moment, but you can still get him at ADP 130. This is Mark Andrews.
A lot of the fantasy darlings like him as well.
I can see why. I was looking at the scrimmages they've been doing in practice, and Mark Andrews was heavily targeted. Same for Kittle actually at San Francisco, but you pay a much bigger, higher price for him. So Mark Andrews, potential breakout, ADP at 130, so it's not going to cost you a lot to find out.
And I think, if you're honest, the thing about that team is they're going to need him, aren't they? It's for that team to thrive in any kind of passing work. The tight end and the running backs are going to have to give the
they're normally your safety blanket, aren't they?
Yeah. He's a big man. I think he's 6'6", 6'7", Mark Andrews, 260, I think, pounds. He's a monster of a guy. And I did hear the report I caught on the NFL.com site was about his blocking's really improved in the last 12 months, which is always a good sign for a tight end.
I mean, they have got a few. I mean, they got Hayden Hurst as well. They got a few others. But he had first year in the league. He is 6'5", so he had 50 targets, which isn't too bad for a first year in the league. That's pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah.
552 yards
and
3 touchdowns. So, it's not beyond belief that he could improve on that immensely, isn't it?
It's good value at 130. Yeah, very, very good value. And I can see why he would be someone to have a think about for this year. Could definitely there's more there for him, I think. That is nowhere near the ceiling that he's capable of. That's a good spot. Well, if we then move on, I guess Jack Doyle would be the one to talk about there in 143 ADP. I know he's had a few injury woes himself, but and is often the case with tight ends. They do tend to pick up injuries because they have to be blockers, good able
quite physical,
well.
aren't they?
Very physical, but he's still very young. Obviously, he's got a great opportunity there. What do you think about him in your view for this year? Do you think he would have a chance to do some breakout? Maybe
I do, because Andrew Luck in the red zone, he's somebody that does target tight ends a lot. We saw that with Ebron last year.
Ebron had 12 last year, but didn't have the yards to go with it, which is sort of deceptive, wasn't it? 400 odd yards and 12 touchdowns always inflates your value, because obviously 12 sounds fantastic, but so unrepeatable. But certainly Jack Doyle could be the beneficiary.
Well, I don't know, because I mean Andrew Luck is somebody that targets tight ends a lot. So in the red zone, like you say, he uses Hilton and the like to get at the field, but in the red zone, tight ends are his game, really. Which is why Jack Doyle probably at ADP of 143.
It's worth a shot.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 years previous to that, and bear in mind, Luck didn't play one of these. He got 584 on 690 yards and 5 and 4 touchdowns. So I think that would be your floor, really, about what you're going to get when he plays a full season with Luck.
So he's very fantasy relevant then. I mean, he's got
143. I mean,
anything could happen for him. He could have a massive breakout. So it's a great pick down here at 143, and I can totally get that with Jack Doyle, because tight ends. I don't put a lot of premium in them, and I'm just looking for the guy that falls the furthest, if I'm honest, and try and pick up someone that I think is too good value to pass up. I mean, I did the old usual thing here. I waited for Delanie to fall to a certain point and grabbed him, and then I backed him up just in case he's not all the way back from injury. I suppose that's as good a strategy as anything with this.
Yeah, well, I mean, who did you back him up with? That's our next player.
That is our next player. It's Carl Rudolph. I picked him up in the last round of a large league, 15 rounds. He was in the 15th round. I mean, that's just a bargain there at 145. It just shows you.
So that's getting like 190 area, isn't it? 200 something.
So that's fantastic. Well, last round, it's
more
than that. Yeah, 240 if you were the last pick. So you're talking over 200. So I certainly got him at value. But whether it's any good will be another matter entirely. But I do think that the only way is up for this guy. I mean, I know the year before, truthfully, there was no chemistry between him and Kirk
He's still
Cousins.
got 634 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I know.
Even in a poor year.
Chemistry, yeah.
And, there was a report, coming out saying that the chemistry with Cousins is growing all the time.
They've done a lot of work in the camp to improve that, and how this has manifested itself, because I did a bit of research about this, is that they've spent more time together, but that's personally as well as on the field, so more personal bonding between the families, which I think is a good thing. A bit of chemistry, a bit more work individually before practice and after practices together to build the rapport, working out what routes each is better at. It can only lead to, you would hope for a little uptick at the very least. I mean, if he was to creep over 700, 750 yards, that's relevant straight away, because I always say if you can get 90 in standard, you're really in the mix. So just a few touchdowns.
I mean, he had 7 and 8 touchdowns the year before, so
he's capable, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's
definitely.
Very capable. So one to watch. He slipped under the radar. He's really off the radar for fantasy people. It's a bit strange, as you say. You highlight a very good point. 600 yards.
He's got a very good floor, I think.
Yeah, so well worth a shot. Now this brings you to an old faithful of yours. You like Greg Olsen, don't you?
I do. Obviously, he's only down here because the injury is the foot injury last year kept him out. He's had a broken foot the last 2 years, so you're
147 ADP, and I guess the one thing that I would say about tight ends that doesn't really play in is the one position is I'm not really too worried about if they've had loads of years of injury, because truthfully you're just looking. I mean, you can always drop a tight end and pick a tight end.
Yeah, I mean he's tight end 17, so it's not like
you're not risking much.
It's not like you've lost your whole draft if he goes
and
down.
You've probably seen from that board. I mean, a lot of the tight ends fell. They're in orange on the board. You can see a lot of tight end orange down the board. Strangely, there's one team with 3 tight ends, but that's obviously something that they've seen for value. But there's definitely a lot of value for tight ends, because they do often slip in boards, particularly those beyond the first 5 drop very dramatically. So there's some real value.
Yeah, why I put him there? I mean, the injury,
steady Eddie, isn't he?
I mean, it's not even steady. I mean, it's good numbers. I mean, the last 2 years, obviously, the injuries are a big worry. But like I say, it's not a problem. The 3 years before that, over 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
So Cam, and this was with Cam, and Cam, loved him. So if they get that going, I mean, and 6 and 7 touchdowns.
It's the one time I break my rule of if you have 2 years of injury woes, I don't bother to touch your year 3. It's a complete. I will break that here with players like this, because as Al knows, if obviously you take a shot on a player like this, if it doesn't work, if it works, you've got a big upside ceiling. But if it fails, there's going to be tight ends out there. Some of the tight ends we've actually mentioning here to pick up on the waivers.
Yeah, I mean, he still managed 4 touchdowns last year, and he had a broken foot for most of it. So
yeah, I do like that pick, and it's a very sensible. And that brings you on to your final man, because this is a man you really like.
When they really like, he's basically, you can pick him up wherever you like. His ADP is 278.
So that's right through the floor.
Yeah, I mean, if he's not on your radar already, even in Dynasty, if you're a bit short of tight end and you need a really late stash, this guy could be the man for you, and that's Darren Waller of the Raiders. Now, why I like him, I don't like the Raiders. I got to start by saying that.
Hard knocks.
Yeah, well, we might see a bit more of him, but apparently he's been unplayable in camp. He's a bit like Evan Ingram. He's a pure pass catching tight end, so he's not going to have to do much blocking, and he will be there purely to catch passes. And then, the Raiders' defense hasn't been able to cover him, but that's nothing. They can't cover anyone, so I don't know if that's a good sign or not. But
I think the good thing is he's got an opportunity.
He's any price you like. So
you're not paying any premium. You could actually have a draft and pick him up, as you say, more than likely off the waivers, most leagues, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, even in Dynasty, he could be worth a stash just to see if he ever turns.
This is Gruden, and you never know with him how it's all going to play out. And Derek Carr is obviously still looking for weapons people he trusts. So anybody could pan out.
As we're talking, Antonio Brown.
We'll talk about that in another video. Come and watch that, because we'll talk about the news on Antonio Brown, because that definitely needs a video. So we will talk about him in detail, and that'll be one to watch. So we'll have talk about that. Very interesting video that will be. But Darren Waller, 278, any price you like, as Al says, great identification of a player that could easily have a bigger ceiling than anybody thinks, and the floor's nothing really. You're not losing anything, and that's why this list has been put together.
I mean, another one you could throw in there is Jason Witten. He's out of retirement now. He's always been a steady Eddie for Dak and the Cowboys. Yeah. He's probably any price you like as well. So you could probably do a lot worse.
Well, one thing about this list is no matter what you think, you're not paying a big premium. There's no big price, and if they don't work out and you're not happy with them very early doors, you can bin them and you pick someone else up who might do a bit better for you. That's the beauty of this list.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, have we missed anybody? I mean,
is there anybody? Yeah,
put it down in the comments. Let us know.
As you've probably seen from previous videos, if you say something about a player you're interested in, we'll pick up on that and we will do a video on them as quickly as we can, because we want to give you relevant information. We're gearing up very quickly now towards our bold prediction list, and they'll be coming out quite soon. And they're worth watching. That'll be countdown from 10 down to 1. And this year, Al's joining in on that list. And
he's doing his own list.
He's doing his own list, which is nice to see. So I look forward to that. Maybe some crossover. We may agree on some players, and that's perfectly okay. So we'll see how that plays out.
Okay, well, like I say, if you like a late tight end, leave it down in the comments. And while you're there, hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. And thanks very much for watching.
Take care.